Hi guys, Mark here from Bochner's Body Therapy, a fitness kickboxing class. Now, what we're going to do today in this video is teach you the stretches and exercises that you want to do if you take a fitness kickboxing class. So let's talk about our hip circles. Now, as we get older, a couple things happen. The first is that we always move usually in a linear fashion. So we're going up and we're going back. We don't do a lot of stuff with a triplanar motion where we're moving and twisting. Okay? So what we want to do when we're preparing for our fitness kickboxing, which has a lot of that rotation, is you want to open up the hips. So what we're going to start with is our hip circles. So all we're going to do is bring our knee up and then roll it out. So we're opening up the hip socket. We're opening up and using those muscles. Now, if I have some balance issues, this is where the bag comes in. I'm just going to hold on to it and come up and out. So I'm just like this. Now, the other reason this is important, and we're going to cover this in another stretch, is that when we're doing our kicks, we're using our hip flexor, so the muscle right near the groin, to bring the leg up. So as we do that repetitive motion, we want to make sure our hip flexors are warmed up and they're strong enough to do it. That's why a lot of times, well, maybe not a lot of times, but that's why sometimes you might get some pain over here because that hip flexor is bringing up that leg. So obviously the leg can be really strong, it can be pretty heavy, and that hip flexor is responsible for bringing it up and moving it up. So the first exercise, we're doing hip circles, moving in and out, both sides. I would even recommend doing this for about 1 minute. Now let's talk about our bag hang. Now when we're doing a lot of our punches, we tend to get tight in the chest and in the shoulders. So with this bag hang, we're going to start to loosen that up as well as the lats. One of the things I want to let you know is that the covering of the muscle, so like that fascia, it's like the webbing on the orange, the white stuff. When that gets tight, it makes the muscles tight. So the way we're going to stretch that is actually by hanging on the bag. So I bend my knees to add more pressure, and I just kind of hang here. Now, when I do that, I'm currently feeling that in my lat coming up to my shoulder, up here, and then all the way up. If I wanted to add more resistance, I kind of hang a little bit lower so I can feel it pull. Now when I do this one, this is where I want to hold it for about 90 seconds or even a little bit longer to get that fascial to stretch. So I'm up here, the fascial covering's there, I just feel it pull, and I'm just holding my position. Now let's talk about another way to stretch out the front of our chest and our shoulders. Now we're going to be stretching out our biceps and our pec. And we're going to do this on both sides. So what we're going to do is we're going to take my hand and grab behind my back. So if I was on this side, I'm grabbing just like this. What I'm going to do is start to roll away. So I'm taking my body to face away from my wave bag. So I'm in here, I roll away. Now I start to feel a stretch up through my bicep and into my chest. So I'm coming in just like this. This would also be a really good stretch if you spend a lot of time on a computer, or maybe you're a hairdresser looking over somebody where your chest muscles are going to get really tight. So I put it in here, I roll away, and again I'm going to hold for about at a minimum 30 seconds or even a minute or a little bit longer. When I do the other side, I put it here, I'm going to roll away. So I roll away just like this. So I'm going to stretch both sides of my chest. Now let's talk about how we're going to actually stretch our hamstrings using our wave bag. You can also do this on the floor, but I actually like to do it on the wave bag, especially if it's at the beginning of class and we're just warming up. So what I'm going to do is take my leg and keep my toes up and put it right between the two grooves over there. So it's flat right against this bag. Now all I'm going to do is take my body and lean forward so I can feel a stretch come right down here. I can use my hands to kind of help me, just like that, and I'm leaning in. Again, 30 seconds would be the minimum I would say to hold this. I really like to hold this for a minute or a little bit longer. Now when I'm doing stuff like this, if I want to make it a little bit more advanced, I can kind of fall in the center. So now I'm stretching a little bit of my lower back and my hamstring, or I can kind of reach over to the side. So I'm adding variations to my hamstring stretch. But again, if I'm doing my hamstring, we'll do the other leg. My toes are up against it, just like that, and I'm leaning in. So now let's cover how we're actually going to stretch these hip flexor muscles. Now right now, I'm using a little rubber disc to give some more cushion to my knee. But if your kickboxing studio has nice mats like these, you can do it without it. So what I'm going to do to stretch my right hip flexor, my right knee is on my disc, and I'm going to post my left leg. Now, what's going to happen from here is I'm going to take my pelvis and bring it forward. So as I'm leaning in, I'm starting to get a stretch over here. What I'm going to do is take my arms and bring them up and start to kind of pulse them back. So as my arms pulse backwards, my knee slightly moves forward. I'm not going over my toes like this. I'm just coming in straight. So I can either hold it or I can even pulse it. Now, this is where it gets interesting. What I can also do is take my hands here and bring them over to the side. So now I'm coming in this way, and you can definitely feel a different stretch over here. And I can also bring them this way. Right? Now remember, when you're doing your side kicks, your roundhouse kicks, you're really using that hip flexor to bring it up. So we want to make sure that adequately stretched out. So when I'm over here, look at coming up, just like this. I can come to the side. You can definitely feel that one. And then I'm moving over here. And again with this, I like a minute, but you could do 30 seconds. You can switch other sides. You want to make sure it's comfortable for you. Now let's talk about how to stretch your piriformis muscle, which is in your butt. Now one of the things about this muscle is that it can actually clamp down on the nerve and give you pain all the way down your leg. One of the tips we would give as a physical therapist for a male is that if they're getting pain down their leg, we would check to see if their wallet is on that side because it can compress the muscle in the nerve. Now if you're doing your kickboxing and that muscle gets really tight, there is the possibility that it can aggravate that sciatic nerve going all the way down to your foot. But especially when you're doing a lot of leg activities, leg exercises, you want to make sure this piriformis muscle is stretched out. Now Miss Alex is going to help us stretch this muscle out. So she's going to go into like a figure four, we're going to call it like a pigeon. So watch how she puts her foot just like this, and she's going to bring this up just a little bit. Now, what she's going to try to do is just put her arms in front of her just like that. So she starts to feel a good stretch. If she has that, she's going to go down to her forearms and then put her arms out so she's all the way down. Now we're still holding this, again, at a minimum of 30 seconds, but I actually really prefer 90 seconds. Now what she can do from here is start to walk her hands over to one side. And then she's getting see that, a little bit of a stretch there. She'll then hold that for about, let's say, 90 seconds, walk back to the middle, and then walk to the other side. Now let's watch that on the other side. So she's going to come up slow, switch her feet, get into that little pigeon position right there. She's actually probably getting a hip flexor stretch right there. So this is where you start to compound the movements. She comes down with her arms to her forearms, arms totally outstretched, and then she would walk to both sides.